McMullen, who's working on a little bit more sleep. Still not completely over the cold, but at least he got a little bit more sleep after Sunday Night Football. And yours truly, Jody McDonald. I didn't get much sleep last night because I was on the air on WIP till 2 o'clock. So we kind of reversed roles here today. Johnny Mac, I want to talk about the MVP in the National Football League. Quickie quiz for you, buddy. When was the last time a Philadelphia Eagle player won the MVP?
It's a good question. I'm not a big MVP. It's not an award I'm interested in, but I don't think anybody has that I can think of. Have they?
Here's the answer to the question. In 1960, when the Eagles won their championship, Norm Van Brocklin was named the league's most outstanding player. They started giving out an award in 1957. And in 57, 58, 59, and 60, they called it the most outstanding player in the National Football League. And Van Brocklin won it in 1960 when the Eagles won the championship. In 61, they changed the name of the award to most valuable player. And since 1961, no Philadelphia Eagles player has ever won the MVP. So it's never happened. The answer to the question is never. Now, 60 was basically the MVP. They just had a different name for it. But if you're going to be to the end to be accurate, they're 0 for the MVP.
Yeah.
They've never won the MVP. And they got a legit shot this year with Jalen Hurts. I checked my BetParks app yesterday. And right now, Jalen Hurts is the second choice to Patrick Mahomes. But what jumped out at me was the amount of difference between the two. Mahomes right now in the MVP race is minus 150. And for those of you who don't wager, I'll give a quick explanation. That means you would have to put up $150 just to win 100. So he's less than even money to win the MVP, which means he is a heavy favorite at this point. Jalen Hurts is the second choice, and he's currently plus 333. So if you wanted to bet him, you could bet 100 and win $333, 3-1 with a little juice on top. You certainly can make the argument that Mahomes is the favorite as of right now. The head over heels, substantial favorite. Do you not look at the 2 seasons the two guys have had, John, and say it's pretty close between Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts? Because I surely do. And at least at the one betting outlet I checked, it's not close. It's Mahomes in a runaway. Do you see it that way?
I do, but I don't agree with it. Like, I know it's a runaway. I know he's going to win. I've been saying it on this show for a couple of weeks now.
Please explain why to our loyal streamers.
Because I know what the voters look for. And that's what they're looking for. And they're going to default to the whatever he's got, 30 touchdown passes.
So it's only 29, but he's close.
Yeah. That's what they default to. They're not going to look at the dual threat and the esoteric nature of the Eagles offense and the impact that Jalen Hurts has. So me personally, I think it's very close. Me personally, I think you can make a strong argument that Jalen Hurts is more important to the Eagles. And again, some of it comes down to definition. I always say this is not a run-first offense, not a pass-first offense. This is Jalen Hurts' first offense with the Eagles. They do whatever they have to do to win a game. They toggle back and forth. It's really impressive. But I know what they look for. Our buddy Rob Motti handles the voting for the AP. I know what the voters look for, and they look for traditional numbers and traditional quarterback play and what people think of as traditional quarterback play. And that tilts more towards Mahomes, and it tilts more towards Mahomes in a pretty drastic degree. So the fact that he's going to be second, and by the way, maybe the bigger argument here is your guy, Tua, because he seems to get overlooked, and he should be in the conversation as well.
Tua right now, the third choice at 6-1. So you got Mahomes at less than even money, Jalen at 3-1 plus, Tua at a flat 6-1. So I think they've got him in the right order. I think they just deserve to be more tightly bunched together right now.
Yeah, I agree. They should be. It should be closer, but it's not. It's a runaway, and Patrick is going to win it. And I wouldn't get too worked up about it because, as you mentioned, it's for the most part, it's now a quarterback award. There's a few times, we're just talking about MVPs. I remember looking back. Lawrence Taylor, I think, is the last defensive player to win it. And that's a while ago. And before Lawrence Taylor, you got to go back to Alan Page. So it's not a defensive award. Adrian Peterson's season, whatever that was, 2012-ish, 2011, 2012-ish, when he had the 2,000-yard season. That was amazing, and I believe he won the MVP. Even from that year, things have changed so drastically. It's become a quarterback award, and it is what it is. Lamar Jackson did win it, so I guess you never know. But as long as there's somebody having a year like Patrick Mahomes is having, yeah, he's gonna run away with it.
Here's the reason why it bothers me a little bit, John. And I think I brought this up with you yesterday, or maybe it was with Glenn on Sunday. Passer rating. You and I have had this discussion before. I admit that passer rating is a flawed way to rate the quarterbacks in the National Football League. But it's still the best way to rate the quarterback. There is no perfect way. We lean on our friends from Pro Football Focus all the time, and certainly they come up with certain rankings and ratings that leave me scratching my head. So I'm not even going to just buy into them, as you just have to use them as the Bible to decide everything. Sorry, I like you guys. I'll debate you guys from time to time. But passer rating is supposed to take the dual threat running quarterback, how many yards can you pile up while running it, and or touchdowns that you can pile up while running it. That'd be 8 for Jalen. And take that out of the mix. This is purely a passer rating. When you drop back and you cock and you let it go off the shoulder, that's what this is supposed to depict. Right now in the National Football League, the passer ratings are Tua Tagovailoa, number 1, 115.7. Geno Smith hanging in there at 107.9. Jalen Hurts third at 105.6. And Patrick Mahomes fourth at 105.3. So that's a passer rating. That doesn't add to the mix what Jalen Hurts brings to the Eagle offense and his ability to make plays with his legs and his abilities to score touchdowns via the ground. That's not enough to sway the voters, that there is a legit statistic out there that says Jalen Hurts is having just as good a passing season as Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. See, the problem with passer rating, and nobody should, and I'm not, and when I say nobody, there's some people who understand the formula, but the formula is very tilted towards interceptions. So if you have more interceptions, it's going to kill your passer rating. Jalen obviously has protected the football better than anybody. 3 interceptions, whatever it is. He, by the way, even more impressive to me is his ball security as a runner, which is phenomenal considering how much he runs it. So, I mean, that part of it, it's not an insult to him, but the formula is what I'm trying to say is very skewed. So, when you look at somebody like Mahomes, and I don't even know how many interceptions he has,
He's
but
got 8. Jalen has 3. Mahomes has 8.
yeah. And there's the, and what was the numbers? 105, what to 105?
Oh, 105.6 to 105.3. It's very close, but
Yeah.
Jalen is
So,
slightly ahead.
and if you knock that number in that formula down to 3, which you can't, he'd be way ahead. I mean, he'd be way ahead. And that's part of the limitations of, there's limitations to every number you can do. ESPN has their quarterback rating, which takes into effect the running attack. So and that's why I applaud the voters who don't look at just numbers. And if you went with numbers, then it should be Tua, right? Yeah, I mean, if you just went with passing numbers, do I think, if you ask me who the best quarterback is, I would say Patrick Mahomes. So I can't really argue with people who say, he's the MVP of the league. But Jalen Hurts deserves to be in the conversation. And that to me is amazing. And he is in the conversation. Is he going to win it? No. But it's pretty impressive to be number 2. And that's where he is right now. And he's playing at an MVP level. That to me is the only thing that matters. He's playing at an MVP level.
All right, let me paint a scenario. And I'm not predicting this, I'm not projecting this, I'm just suggesting it could happen. Let's say the Eagles win their next 4 games, including a win over Dallas on Christmas Eve, in which Jalen Hurts plays very well. I'm not even going to go 170 yards rushing like he had this week. I won't even go 5 touchdown pass game. No, he has a Jalen Hurts type game, and the Philadelphia Eagles go into Dallas, beat Dallas, and basically salt away home field advantage throughout with a 13-1 record, 14-1 record going into the last 2 games. And then Jalen Hurts is skimmed back, that he's not playing. What happens if the Chiefs go 3-3 in the last 6 weeks of the season, and Mahomes loses 4 games and Jalen only loses 1, because the Eagles really do pull in the oars? They've kind of shown the ability and belief to do that. When in doubt, get your star players off the field to protect them. And I expect them to do the same at the end of this year. How much do wins and losses play into that? Now, the Chiefs could still, with 4 losses, be the number 1 seed in the AFC. But if the Eagles basically have 1 loss going into the last 2 weeks of the season, and Jalen Hurts' record is 14-1, is that enough to swing the voters?
Yeah, I think record's a big part of it. Probably shouldn't be. The old wins and loss are not a quarterback stat. I mean,
Yeah, they are.
Well, to people, the coaches will tell you they're not, because, it's the ultimate team game, right? That's what they always say. And, quarterback gets more credit and coaches when a team wins than they probably deserve, and they get more blame, the old adage. And it's true. It's 100% true. There's a million ways you can win a football game. So it does matter. Obviously, I mean, look, I think, and I give this argument all the time. I've had this, Nick Sirianni loves Phillip Rivers. And one of the ways we connected, I always thought Phillip Rivers was a better quarterback than Eli Manning, but he didn't win the Super Bowls. So nobody's talking about him as a potential Hall of Famer, because he didn't win 2 Super Bowls. He was a bet for the game by game, year after year. If you just went game by game, who's better? Phillip Rivers is a better quarterback, and it's not even that close, to be honest. It's not even that close. But when you win, Jody, everything gets skewed. So, yeah, it means a lot. And if you're sitting there at 16-1. And all of a sudden, Kansas City's 12-5, or that'll make a big difference. If
It can.
they finish this out and Kansas City falters, uh, uh, not consistently, but they're not dominant. Yeah, it matters.
And I'll give you another reason why it can and should matter. I just looked at Kansas City's finishing schedule. They're in Cincinnati this week, and Cincinnati got a pretty impressive win on the road against Tennessee this week. And maybe the Bengals are just hitting their Super Bowl stride as of right now. So that's a tough game. After that, their last 5 games, you ready for this, Johnny Mac? Broncos are a dumpster fire right now. Houston, ouch, got the worst record in the National Football League. Seattle, but they've got them at home, and Seattle will be fighting for a playoff spot. So that's a good game, but one that the Chiefs will surely be favored, maybe by as many as a touchdown. Denver again, and then finish out with the Josh McDaniels-led Raiders. So Kansas City's got a pretty easy finish out the season schedule. The only 2 real games on it are Cincinnati this week and Seattle. The other ones are divisional opponents that they've already, the Raiders already beat. The Broncos, they could probably beat with a blindfold on and an arm tied behind their back. If the Chiefs do go 3-3 down the stretch, Patrick Mahomes shouldn't get the MVP. If they can't win 4 or 5 of those games with that finishing schedule I just rattled off for you, he's not the MVP of anything.
Well, there's a reason he's the prohibitive favorite, Jody, and schedule's part of it. It isn't going to be. He isn't going to fall off a cliff. He isn't going to lose a bunch of games. Kansas City's a good team. He's the best quarterback. He's probably going to finish the deal. Let's be honest. And that's why. Those people that set the odds, they're not dumb, Jody. They know what they're doing. He's a prohibitive favorite for a reason. And unfortunately for the Eagles, but really, that's probably the wrong word, because to have the number 2 MVP candidate on your team is pretty good. And if you go back to the start of the season, if anybody said Jalen Hurts is going to Jalen Hurts is going to finish number 2 in the MVP voting to Patrick Mahomes, I would have laughed at them, Jody. I would have laughed in their face.
We all would have. And you know how big a Jalen Hurts fan and how much I was saying, you got to give this guy a chance. Those people that continued to tell us, and we had some right here on our stream on Birds 365. He's not accurate enough. He can never be a franchise quarterback because he's not accurate enough. And both you and I said it. You can work on that. That is a skill that absolutely can be improved. That if you put the time and effort in, that you can absolutely get better at it. Now, I expected him to get better. As much better as he did? No. Even a big Jalen Hurts fan like me couldn't have given you the numbers that he's actually put up. But that did annoy me during the offseason, Johnny Mac. People just didn't give him enough of a chance to improve his game, and he's improved it by leaps and bounds.
No, I always thought one of my pet peeves is the draft and people's grand assertions about players. And I use the phrase player development is real all the time. The time. Players get better, players get worse, players get stagnant. It goes in all 100 different directions. You don't just draft somebody and they show up and that's what you have. That is just the start of the process. And the good teams develop players. The good coaches develop players. The good staffs develop players. The Eagles have done a phenomenal job developing Jalen Hurts. They deserve credit. Jalen deserves a ton of credit. We talk about his work ethic. He's the one. For years he did one thing, and he was comfortable. And that's one of the hardest things to do, Jody. You get to the point where you're an NFL starting quarterback. Everything you've done in your life to that point has gotten you to that. And he changed, and he went out to see Tom House and Adam Daydew and all those guys in Southern California. And that's out of his comfort zone. And a lot of people won't do that. And he did it. So he deserves a ton of credit as well. But this mentality, and you'll hear it, and we'll do it leading up to the draft this year. We do it every year, and we'll have 100 different people on, and they'll all be making grand proclamations about 20, 21-year-old kids who haven't played a game in the NFL. This guy's this guy's that. He's never going to be this. He's never going to be that. And it happens every year. Forget about Jalen Hurts. TJ Edwards is, another guy I often bring up. TJ Edwards can't do this, can't do that, can't do this, can't. Well, all he does is freaking play football well. I know we didn't run well on 1 March day back when he was getting drafted. That doesn't define somebody for the rest of their life, but for a lot of people, it does. It's weird.
It's ridiculous is what it is, if you ask me. All right. Let me make a bold prediction. Write this one down as a hot take, whatever you need to do. Or
by the way, Jody, I got to break in because little breaking news.
Okay.
From Tom Pelissero, NFL media. Eagles safety C.J. Gardner-Johnson is out indefinitely with a lacerated kidney.
Yikes.
Lacerated kidney. Non-surgical testing is ongoing. Timetable still to be determined. It is not expected, that's the good news, not expected to be a season-ending injury. Lacerated kidney. I immediately go back to Zach Ertz. Played in the playoffs. Came back with a lacerated kidney. By the way, that was the start of the issues with Zach Ertz and the Eagles. So he'll be back, but anytime you hear lacerated kidney, that's scary.
That is very scary. And if that's Pelissero's report, and he's pretty good at ferreting out that kind of information, even as a national guy getting local team info, it's probably pretty darn accurate, which the Eagles really keep tight to the vest. So good for Pelissero for being able to get that out. All right. Prediction for you. Lengthy prediction down the road. To check mark this one and hold me to it if it comes to fruition and or give me grief if it blows up. The championship game, championship weekend this year in the National Football League will be in the AFC. Tyreek Hill returning to Kansas City, where he made his name and did say that the most accurate quarterback he's ever played with is Tua Tagovailoa, not the MVP, Patrick Mahomes. Tyreek Hill going back to KC to take on the Chiefs for the AFC Championship. And in the NFC, Johnny Mac, much like in the AFC, going to be a former wide receiver.
Jalen Reagor?
What's that?
Jalen Reagor?
That is incorrect. But a former wide receiver coming to Philadelphia as part of the team that is playing the Eagles for the championship of the NFC. Who would that receiver be?
Let's see. Dallas, San Francisco. Those are the two teams that I'm most concerned about. I mentioned Jalen Reagor. I'm not concerned with Minnesota or the Giants. I don't know. Who are you talking about? Who am I missing?
Do you know who's on the 49ers roster still?
On
injured reserve.
Has
not played a snap this year. Has not played a snap in the National Football League for the last 3 seasons, but is on San Francisco's roster.
You're not talking about Marquise Goodwin. He's on Seattle.
No.
I don't know where now. I'm lost.
Do you know who's on San Francisco? And I didn't even realize. I just noticed it on their roster. Jordan Matthews.
Oh, wow. Jordan.
Is still on the 49ers roster on injured reserve. So he
Boy.
could be on the sideline for that game. Chance to come back to Philadelphia with the 49ers to take on the Eagles.
Elliot Shore Parks would be very excited by that. Yeah, he's a big Jordan Matthews
He's a big
guy.
Jordan Matthews guy.
Yeah. I'd go more Rager than that. I think Rager's got a chance to start playing in Minnesota because their third receivers crapping the bed a little bit, so he might get an opportunity. And Marquise, he's actually made a play.
He's made a couple of plays for Seattle.
Yeah. Those are the more relevant ex-Eagles receivers, shockingly.
Agreed, but I don't think Seattle's going to be here for the championship game.
Sorry, I don't think either. I don't think Minnesota is
Marquise
either.
Goodwin's fans. Minnesota better chance than Seattle in my book, but yeah, there's a reason that the Cowboys and the 49ers are right now the second and third choices in the NFC behind the 10-1. Always remember to come back to that, Eagle fans. The 10-1 Philadelphia Eagles. He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDowell. We'll come back. Dave Zingaro, NBC Sports Philly's going to join us a little over 15 minutes from now. So keep it there on Birds 365.